party to this thing is the Egyptians. And for a very long time, Egypt has been a beneficiary of the Nile. In fact, Egypt is the Nile. And I really believe that if you look at the figures, and if you look at the structure of the amount of water that's going to go through the dams and through the turbines, and what eventually ends up in Egypt. And I've looked at this closely for a time now. There's really not much of a difference. The contentious issues develop during periods of, say, drought, and what kind of guarantees Egypt has for getting sufficient amount of water. But at the end of the day, Ethiopia has every right to build a dam to get electricity so that we in East Africa can exchange and trade on these issues. Kenya can get Ethiopian electricity cheaply, and we can provide other things for Ethiopia. But I see that it is...
Nile. The history of Egypt revolves around the Nile. Now the challenge, though, for 100 years, or close to that, in 1929 to 59 treaties, Egypt almost had an exclusive monopoly over the use of the River Nile. And at the time, I think it was the second most populous country on the continent. Right now it's number 3. It has about 100 million. I think Ethiopia is about 110 million now. Yeah. Now, this dam is of great national or nationalistic importance to lots of Ethiopian psyche, you know. But also in practical terms, while industrially Ethiopia is still a little bit behind Kenya, the double-digit growth in the last decade or so means that they're actually going to need a lot more power to drive the economy. Just this an editorial on by the Brook Institution, that was the most preeminent think tank in the United States, actually advising Egypt and Ethiopia to dump the Washington-led rushed arrangement, that because it's not going to work. And you know, this is Brookings saying that. Yeah. I did not think it was going to take place, you know, either last month when they tried in Washington, or this month. It's not going to happen. Now, part of the challenge for Ethiopia is Egypt is insisting on maintaining a veto over any future projects on the Nile. 2, it wants the filling of the dam to take much longer period. Now, Ethiopia does not think that it's going to be practical because of its need to start making use of the $5 billion investment. You know, they cannot wait between 12 or 20 years. They want to do it sooner. And so, if they can negotiate and actually reach some kind of an arrangement where, for instance, there is understanding between the upstream countries and the downstream countries. Because remember, for the longest time, Egypt has had a monopoly, and this is something that has not really been discussed sufficiently. And so Ethiopia thinks, look, the Blue Nile is also 50% of this river, and we've never been able to profit from it. How can we not have a say? There has to be negotiations that are actually serious and not rushed. The AU should be robustly involved in this, because this has implications for the continental security, you know, to be honest with you. And if we outsource it to Washington, which doesn't live here, is going to be a problem. We are the ones who live here, you see. Lake Victoria is also part of the source of the River Nile. Yeah. So all these things are affected. Exactly. Yeah. And so if we need to bring this debate actually back on the continent and move it away from Washington,
right. Professor Nomi Damba.
Well, a lot has been said about this. History will prove us wrong or right. This needs to be African solution. It's a long-term solution. Egypt cannot continue to depend on this, say, if River Nile goes, Egypt goes. Israel has one of the largest desalination plants in the world, pumping water from the sea into Israel and feeding its population. Egypt must think differently, cannot stay in the box. And the point is, the source of this water is Lake Victoria. What about the Great Lakes countries? What about Kenya? What about Uganda? What about Sudan? What about Egypt, Ethiopia? So everybody needs to think a better way, a better solution of using this water rather than someone sitting and saying it is our right. Because there is no that such right. And so there must be a rational way of thinking beyond the British mandated or signature that was done. We are independent countries.
Right. And water body is a shared resource, as it is, Dr. Mustafa.
The negotiation that is ongoing. This is an issue that should be dealt with by the Africa Union. I mean, having the United States coming here to help in dealing with these issues is an indictment to the AU. And it's best that the challenge of the Nile is addressed through platforms or processes that the Africa Union develops.
Right. Thank you. Brigadier.
Yeah.